you can get into a very heated discussion in B2B marketing land by mistakenly calling something audience or community. And so I think defining these things is pretty important. Historically, when we've talked about community, what we've really meant, at least in B2B, is like our customer community, where we have like a discussion forum or something, or maybe an event for our customers only, and that's our community. And I think that definition is sort of changing a little bit. The way I think about it is audience is sort of like a superset of your community. So we have a community, it could be customers. If you zoom out one level, it's people who are engaging with each other, even when you're not in the room. And so Gainsight gathered a customer success audience, of which there are other people who are not necessarily in our community that were part of the customer success community, if that makes sense. It's kind of like recursive thinking. I need a whiteboard to like actually communicate that well. Yeah. But I think the idea in general, if you were to simplify it, is the greater definition of audience is people who care about this topic, that they might be a specific persona, or maybe it's a some shared trait or attribute across personas that your brand is evangelizing. They care about it. They're listening, they're reading, they're actively kind of engaged in your thought leadership. But I think the way this is sort of evolving is actually thinking about social media very strategically. Again, it sounds like I'm making an enemy out of social media. I really don't mean to. And where I've learned a lot about this is actually from Alex Lieberman at Morning Brew. He talks a lot about, or formerly at Morning Brew, he talks a lot about the audience funnel. And what he means by the audience funnel, he sort of like labels it out as rented audience, owned audience, and monetized. Rented, owned, monetized. When he says rented, what he means is anywhere where we don't have a direct owned kind of access to a customer or somebody's email address. So social media, we're renting access to that person through an algorithm that we don't control. Content networks like YouTube and Spotify and others, even SEO, these are channels that we've traditionally activated. Those are the very top of the funnel. Like we have to be able to be very active, even more active in social than we used to be. And if you're a B2B company, typically that probably means LinkedIn is your primary kind of channel. But of course, there are several others as well. But what changes is the intention of what we're doing in this channel. I think I touched on it earlier, but we're actively trying to deplatform a LinkedIn follower or somebody that comments or likes some of our content into an owned subscriber, which basically means we have that direct relationship with them. And that's sort of what starts the funnel. And what consumer media companies like Morning Brew do really well is they start looking at all of the first party data around their owned audience, which they now have. You don't have that with LinkedIn. You don't have that on YouTube. You don't get that from SEO. And you can start to understand all of the signal and even model who within your audience is actually showing intent of being of seeing a demo or otherwise a kind of commercially oriented signal within the data set. And then you monetize. In the case of consumer media, they sell them like event registrations or courses or those are premium subscriptions. And in B2B, of course, we get them to see a demo and hopefully, buy the software. So if I am thinking about where I start with all this, I would start by just thinking about the funnel through that lens of rented at the very top. And how do we show up in those channels strategically in order to build a value proposition and drive people toward a value proposition of subscribing to our thought leadership? And then how do we understand the data of our owned audience in order to drive revenue through that relationship?